Tonight, we're diving into something that feels a little too familiar, the kind of place we all go without thinking twice. Walmart. But what happens when you're not the only one watching the shelves? When someone starts watching you? These are true stalker horror stories, real accounts of people followed, hunted, and targeted in the most ordinary places, places you probably drive by every day. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a story. And while you're here, drop a comment below and tell me, where are you watching from? And what time is it right now? Let's get into it. I've worked customer service at Walmart for 6 years. Returns, exchanges, complaints, I've seen it all. Angry customers, confused elderly folks, people trying to return things they clearly stole. You develop thick skin pretty fast in this job, but there was one customer who made me realize that sometimes the scariest people are the ones who seem completely normal at first. It was a Saturday afternoon in July, hot, humid, the kind of day where the AC in the store felt like a blessing. The return desk was slammed. We had a line stretching back past the customer service counter into the main aisle. I was working alone because my coworker had called in sick, and I was just trying to get through returns as fast as possible without making mistakes. Around 2:30 p.m., a woman came up to my register. She was probably in her late 30s, brown hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing yoga pants and a tank top. She had a Walmart bag with her and a receipt in her hand. Nothing unusual. She smiled at me, friendly enough. "Hi, I need to return this baby monitor," she said, sliding the bag across the counter. "It's not working right." I pulled out the monitor, still in the box, looked unopened, and scanned her receipt. Everything checked out. Purchase date was 4 days ago, well within our return window. "No problem," I said. "Did you want to exchange it or get a refund?" "Refund, please." I processed the return, handed her the cash, and she thanked me and walked away. Simple transaction. I didn't think about her again for the rest of my shift. She came back the next Saturday, same time, almost exactly 2:30 p.m., same friendly smile, different baby monitor, but same story. "It's not working right." I processed the return, didn't think much of it. Some people have bad luck with electronics. The third Saturday, I started to notice a pattern. Same woman, same time, another baby monitor. This time, when I pulled it out of the bag, something felt off. The box had been opened, but very carefully resealed, and when I picked it up, it felt too light. "Ma'am, do you mind if I open this to check the contents?" Her smile didn't waver. "Of course not." I opened the box. The baby monitor was inside, but the charging cables were missing. So was the instruction manual. She just stood there, watching me with that same pleasant expression. "I'm sorry, but this return isn't complete. The accessories are missing." "Oh, those must still be at home," she said easily. "I can bring them next time." "We can't process the return without them." Her smile tightened just a little. "That's ridiculous. The monitor doesn't work. Why do I need to return cables for a broken product?" I'd dealt with difficult customers before, so I kept my voice professional and calm. "Store policy, all components need to be included for a full refund, but I can process an exchange if you'd like." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she took the box back, said, "I'll bring the cables next time," and left. Something about the way she looked at me before she walked away made the hair on my arm stand up. The following Tuesday, not Saturday, Tuesday, she came back. Early morning this time, right when I started my shift at 8 a.m., she had 3 baby monitors in her cart, 3 different brands, all in boxes. "Hi again," she said, and that smile was back, but it didn't look friendly anymore. It looked practiced. "I need to return all of these." I took the first box, opened it, empty except for packing materials. "Ma'am, there's no product in here." "Yes, there is." "Check again." I showed her the empty box. Her expression didn't change at all. "That's impossible. It was in there when I bought it. Your store sold me an empty box." The second box was the same, empty. The third box had a baby monitor in it, but it was an older model, not the one on the receipt she'd handed me. These weren't even items she'd purchased. This was return fraud, and she was doing it right in front of me, completely brazen about it. "I can't process any of these returns," I said. "These don't match your receipts, and 2 are empty." Her face changed. The smile dropped completely. "Are you calling me a liar?" "I'm saying these items don't match what you're claiming to return. I want to speak to your manager." I called my supervisor, Rita, who came over and reviewed everything. Rita was in her 50s, had worked retail for 30 years, and didn't take crap from anyone. After looking at the boxes and the receipts, she told the woman the same thing I had. We couldn't process the returns. The woman's voice got very quiet, very calm. "You're both going to regret this." Rita's expression hardened. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The woman smiled again, and it was the kind of smile that made my stomach clench. She gathered her boxes, put them back in her cart, and walked out. But not before stopping at the end of the customer service counter and looking back at me. "I know what car you drive, Vanessa," she said. "I've seen you in the parking lot." My blood went cold. I wasn't wearing a name tag that day. I'd forgotten it at home, which meant she'd learned my name some other way. She'd been paying attention to me. Rita immediately called security and got the woman's information from the cameras. Her name was Patricia Wolf, and when security looked her up in our system, they found she'd been flagged at multiple Walmart locations across 3 states for return fraud. She'd stolen thousands of dollars worth of merchandise using fake receipts and emptied boxes. Rita told me to be careful, to park in well-lit areas, to ask for security to walk me out. I did all of that, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. 3 days later, on Friday evening, I got to my car after my shift and found all 4 of my tires slashed. Security footage showed Patricia had been in the parking lot, waiting. She'd walked up to my car with a knife, punctured each tire, deliberately and slowly, then left. She'd looked directly at the camera while she did it, like she wanted us to know it was her. The police got involved. They arrested her that same night at her apartment. But when they searched her place, they found something that still makes me sick to think about. She had a bulletin board in her bedroom covered with photos of me, in the parking lot, getting into my car, walking into work, at the grocery store across town, at the gas station near my apartment. Some of the photos were from weeks ago, from before the first time she'd ever come to my register. She'd been following me for over a month. They also found photos of other Walmart employees from other stores, women mostly, all of us who had refused her fraudulent returns. There were newspaper clippings too, articles about a woman in Oregon who'd been attacked in a Walmart parking lot 2 years ago. Patricia had highlighted certain passages about the victim's injuries. In her journal, they found pages of notes about me, my schedule, my car, my routines, and written over and over on one page, "She embarrassed me, she needs to learn." The detective told me she'd done this before. In Oregon, she'd been arrested for assault after attacking a store employee with a box cutter. She'd served 18 months and then moved to our state. The woman in Oregon had needed 60 stitches across her face and neck. Patricia took a plea deal, 5 years for stalking, destruction of property, and violating parole. With credit for time served and good behavior, she'd be out in 3. I transferred to a different Walmart 30 miles away. I never worked the same schedule 2 weeks in a row. I vary my routes home. I check my car before I get in it, every single time, under it, around it, inside it. I keep pepper spray on my keychain now. The worst part isn't even what she did, it's knowing she'd been watching me for so long before I ever noticed. All those times I walked to my car alone at night, she could have been there. All those times I'd been too tired to pay attention to my surroundings. She'd been taking photos. Rita told me later that Patricia had asked specifically for me that first Saturday, had waited in line until my register was free, passed up other open registers to come to mine. She'd chosen me on purpose, and I still don't know why. The restraining order says she can't come within 500 feet of me, but in 3 years that piece of paper won't mean anything, and she'll know exactly where to find me, because her last words in court when she looked right at me were, "I'm patient." I was 17 when I got my first job at Walmart. It was supposed to be simple, cart pusher, part-time, weekends, and a few evenings after school. Easy money to save up for a car. My mom was happy I was being responsible, and honestly, I liked it at first. The work was mindless. I got to be outside, and most customers just ignored me. I was invisible, which was fine by me. This happened during my 4th week on the job. On a Thursday night in late September, I was scheduled to close, which meant staying until 11:30 p.m. to bring in all the carts from the parking lot after the store shut down at 11. There were supposed to be 2 of us closing that night, but the other guy called in, so it was just me. The evening started out normal enough. I spent most of my shift making loops around the parking lot, collecting scattered carts, bringing them back to the corral by the entrance. The sun set around 7:45. and by 8:30, it was fully dark. The parking lot lights created these pools of yellow-white light with shadows in between, and the lot was huge, probably 400 spaces, most of them empty by 9 p.m. on a weeknight. Around 9:15, I was pushing a line of carts back toward the store when I noticed a van parked in the far corner of the lot, way out in the last row, nowhere near the entrance. It was one of those older white cargo vans with no windows in the back, and something about it made me pause. The parking lot was half empty by then. Why would someone park all the way out there? I watched it for a minute while I pushed my carts, but nothing happened. No one got in or out. The van just sat there. I told myself I was being paranoid and went back to work. By 10:30, there were maybe 15 cars left in the lot. Most of them were clustered near the entrance. Employees' cars probably, and a few last-minute shoppers. But that white van was still out there in the far corner. And it still hadn't moved. I was starting to get a bad feeling about it. At 10:55, they made the first closing announcement over the store's PA system. Attention Walmart shoppers, our store will be closing in 5 minutes. Please bring your final selections to the front registers. Thank you for shopping with us. I was near the garden center entrance, gathering up the last few stray carts when I saw movement near the van. The driver's side door opened, and someone got out. A man, tall and thin, wearing a dark hoodie, even though it was still warm outside. He didn't head toward the store. Instead, he just stood there by the van, looking around. Looking at me, I felt my stomach drop. I pretended not to notice and kept working, but I could feel his eyes on me. I pushed my line of carts toward the store, and when I glanced back, he was walking. Not toward the entrance, toward me. My heart started pounding. The garden center entrance was locked from the outside after dark. I'd have to go all the way around to the main entrance to get inside, and he was between me and that path. I changed direction, pushing the carts faster, heading toward the main entrance on the other side of the building. When I looked back again, he'd changed direction too, still coming toward me, not running, but walking with purpose, closing the distance. The parking lot suddenly felt enormous and empty. There were cars, but no people. The closest employee entrance was locked. The main doors were still open, but they were 100 yards away, and he was cutting off my angle. I abandoned the carts and started walking fast toward the entrance. Behind me, I heard his footsteps speed up. I didn't look back. I broke into a jog, my work vest flapping, my radio bouncing on my hip. "Hey!" he called out. "Hey kid, wait up!" I didn't wait. I ran. I could hear him running now too, his shoes slapping against the asphalt. I was younger and faster, and I made it to the main entrance with maybe 20 feet to spare. I burst through the automatic doors into the bright fluorescent light of the vestibule, gasping for air. The greeter, an older woman named Louise, looked at me startled. "DeAndre, you okay? There's a guy..." I turned and looked back through the glass doors. He was standing just outside the entrance, in the shadows past where the automatic doors would trigger, watching me. "There's a guy chasing me." Louise looked out, saw him, and immediately picked up her radio. "Security to the main entrance. Now." Our security guy, Jerome, was there in maybe 30 seconds. He stepped outside and I watched through the glass as he approached the man. They talked for a minute. I couldn't hear what they were saying, and then the man pointed at me and said something that made Jerome look back toward the store. Jerome came back inside. He says you took his cart by mistake, says he had merchandise in it he needed to purchase. What? No. I didn't take anybody's cart. He was parked way out in the lot, and when I saw him, he started chasing me. He says his cart had baby supplies in it, says you grabbed it and he was just trying to get your attention. I felt my face get hot. I didn't take his cart. I was getting carts from the corrals, not from people, and he was chasing me. Why would I run if I just made a mistake? Jerome looked uncertain. Louise stepped in. I believe DeAndre. That man gives me the creeps. He's been standing out there for 5 minutes, just staring in here. At 11 p.m. exactly, they locked the front doors. The final announcement played. Walmart is now closed. Thank you for shopping with us. The last few customers trickled out through the exit-only doors on the far side, and then it was just employees in the building. And that man, still standing outside the entrance in the dark, Jerome called the police non-emergency line to report suspicious activity. While we waited, I watched the man through the glass. He wasn't leaving. He was pacing back and forth in front of the entrance, occasionally stopping to stare directly at me. After about 10 minutes, he pulled out a phone and made a call. 5 minutes later, a second vehicle pulled into the parking lot. Another van, this one dark blue. It parked near the entrance and 2 more men got out. Louise grabbed her radio. "We need all management to the front, now." The 3 men stood together in the parking lot talking. One of them kept pointing at the building, at me specifically. I could see him gesturing toward where I stood. My mouth went dry. The store manager, a woman named Patricia, came to the front and assessed the situation. She told me and Louise to go to the back office and stay there. Jerome stayed at the entrance with another employee, a big guy from the meat department named Carlos, who'd been a bouncer before working here. I didn't want to leave the front. Being in the windowless back office felt like a trap, but I also didn't want to be anywhere those men could see me. Louise and I went to the office and she locked the door behind us. We sat there for 20 minutes that felt like 20 hours. I could hear radio chatter but couldn't make out what anyone was saying. Louise tried to reassure me, but her hands were shaking when she poured herself coffee from the break room pot. Finally, Patricia's voice came over the radio. "Police are here. Situation's being handled." When I came back to the front, there were 2 police cars in the parking lot with their lights on. The 3 men were standing by one of the vans, talking to officers. I stayed inside while they did their thing. One of the officers came inside to talk to me. He took my statement, what time I'd noticed the van, how the man had chased me, everything. When he was done, he looked at me seriously. "Son, we ran those plates. That first van was reported stolen 3 days ago in Little Rock. The other van came back to a man with priors for kidnapping and human trafficking." My blood turned to ice. "They're claiming it's all a misunderstanding," the officer continued. "But here's what I think happened. They were watching you. Young kid, working alone, isolated in a big empty parking lot. They saw an opportunity. When you ran inside, they tried to make it seem like a mistake, like you'd done something wrong, maybe hoping you'd come back out to help find this imaginary cart." "What would have happened if I'd fallen for it?" I asked, even though I didn't want to know the answer. The officer didn't sugarcoat it. "Nothing good. We're arresting them, but we probably can't hold them long on what we have right now. The stolen van is enough for the first guy, but the others will likely post bail." They arrested all 3 men that night. When they searched the first van, they found zip ties, rope, and a tarp. No baby supplies, no cart, nothing that supported their story. I found out later from the detective who called my mom that they'd been hitting Walmart parking lots across 3 counties, looking for young employees working alone. I was the first one who'd made it inside before they could grab me. They found evidence in the blue van linking them to 2 missing persons cases, both young men around my age who'd worked night shifts at retail stores. I quit the next day, didn't even finish out my 2 weeks. My mom didn't argue. She picked me up from the store, and when we drove past that corner of the parking lot where the white van had been parked, I saw they'd left something behind. One of my Walmart work gloves, the one I'd lost earlier in my shift. It was placed neatly on the curb in that far corner, right where the van had been parked. They'd had it the whole time. They'd known exactly who I was. The detective told me they'd been watching me for at least 3 days before they made their move. I used to work the overnight shift stocking shelves at Walmart, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., 4 nights a week. The pay was decent, and I liked the quiet. No customers asking where things were, no lines at the registers, just me and my earbuds and pallets of merchandise to unload. It was peaceful, or at least it was supposed to be. This happened in late February, on a Wednesday night that started like any other. I clocked in at 10:53 p.m., grabbed my box cutter and scanner, and headed to the back to start on the freight truck. The store had closed at 11, and by 11:15 it was just the night crew, 6 of us total spread out across a 180,000 square foot building. The temperature outside was hovering around 28 degrees, and there was this bitter wind that made the loading dock doors rattle every time a gust hit. I was working in the pet supplies section, breaking down boxes of dog food, when I heard the first crash. It came from the front of the store, like glass breaking, but louder, more violent. I pulled out my earbuds and listened. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, the freezer units clicked and buzzed, but nothing else. I waited maybe 30 seconds, then radioed to the team lead. "Hey Danny, you hear that?" Static. Then his voice came through. "Hear what?" Sounded like something broke up front. "Probably just the damn doors again. Wind's pretty bad tonight, I'll check it out." I went back to work, but something felt off. That little voice in the back of my head that had kept me alive in some bad situations before I got this job. I turned my music down low instead of up, and I kept my radio volume high. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Danny never radioed back. I was starting to get that tight feeling in my chest when I heard the footsteps, not the soft rubber sole shuffle of someone wearing Walmart-issued work shoes. These were harder, heavier, boot steps echoing through the empty aisles, and they were moving fast. I stepped back between two tall shelving units and peered around the corner toward the main aisle. The overhead lights created these long shadows, and for a second I didn't see anything. Then a figure came around the end cap, near the pharmacy section. It wasn't Danny. It was a man, maybe 6 feet tall, wearing all black with a ski mask pulled over his face, and he was carrying a crowbar, not holding it casually, carrying it like he intended to use it. My heart started hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. I ducked back and pressed myself against the shelving, trying to control my breathing. My radio was clipped to my belt, and I slowly, quietly reached for it, but before I could key the mic, I heard another voice. "He's down here somewhere. I saw him on the camera feed." There were 2 of them. My mouth went completely dry. I looked around frantically for options. The pet aisle I was in had one exit toward the back of the store and one toward the front. Both were exposed. If I ran, they'd hear me. If I stayed, they'd find me. I made a decision. I crouched down and started moving as quietly as I could toward the back, staying low, using the shelving units as cover. My radio suddenly crackled to life, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. "Marcus, you there?" It was Sarah, one of the other stalkers. Her voice was tense. "Something's wrong. I can't find Danny, and the back door's been pried open. I'm hiding in the..." Her scream cut through the radio so loud I fumbled it and nearly dropped it. Then there was a horrible crashing sound and the line went dead. "Found one," someone shouted from the direction Sarah's scream had come from. It sounded like he was near the electronics section, maybe 2 aisles over from where I was. I didn't think. I just ran. I sprinted down the aisle toward the back, my shoes squeaking on the polished floor. Behind me, I heard them coming. 2 sets of footsteps now, pounding after me. I rounded the corner into the stockroom, and that's when I saw Danny. He was on the ground near the baling machine, not moving. There was blood pooled around his head, dark and spreading. His radio was smashed on the floor next to him. I wanted to stop, wanted to check if he was breathing, but I could hear them getting closer. The stockroom was a maze of pallets and shelving units and industrial equipment. I dove behind a stack of boxed furniture and tried to control my breathing. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone steady as I pulled it from my pocket and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? "I'm at the Walmart on Highway 49, I whispered, my voice barely audible. "There are armed men in the store. They've hurt people. I think they might have killed someone. Please send help." "Sir, I need you to stay on the line with me." "How many intruders?" "At least 2, maybe more. They have weapons. They're..." A hand grabbed my shoulder and yanked me backward so hard I felt something pop in my neck. I dropped my phone, heard it clatter away across the concrete floor, and then I was on my back looking up at the ski mask. He raised the crowbar above his head. I did the only thing I could think of. I still had my box cutter in my hand, and I swung it wildly at his leg. The blade caught him across the thigh, and he howled and stumbled backward. I scrambled to my feet and grabbed the first thing I could reach, a metal pallet jack handle, and swung it at him as hard as I could. It connected with his ribs with a sound like a baseball bat hitting a side of beef. He went down hard, gasping, and I didn't wait to see if he'd get back up. I ran. The second man appeared from behind a pallet stack, and he had something worse than a crowbar. He had a tire iron, and he swung it at my head. I ducked, felt the air move as it passed inches from my skull, and it smashed into a metal shelf with a deafening clang that echoed through the whole stockroom. I grabbed a cardboard box, full, heavy, and threw it at him. It hit him in the chest and exploded, sending packages of light bulbs everywhere. Glass shattered. He slipped on the debris, and I used those precious seconds to run for the employee break room. I got inside and slammed the door, locked it. It was a flimsy lock, the kind that wouldn't hold for long, but it was something. The room was small, just a table, some chairs, a vending machine, and lockers along one wall. No other exit. I'd trapped myself. The door handle rattled. Then something heavy slammed into the door. Once, twice. The frame was starting to crack. I looked around desperately and saw the fire extinguisher mounted on the wall. I grabbed it, positioned myself to the side of the door, and waited. My whole body was shaking. Blood was rushing in my ears so loud I almost couldn't hear anything else. The door burst open on the 4th hit, and the man with the tire iron came through. I didn't hesitate. I sprayed the extinguisher directly in his face. White foam exploded everywhere, covering him, filling the room with thick chemical clouds. He staggered backward, screaming, clawing at his mask. I swung the metal extinguisher tank at his head with everything I had. It connected with a sickening crunch, and he dropped like a puppet with its strings cut. The tire iron clattered from his hand, and I grabbed it. The first man appeared in the doorway, limping from where I'd cut him, and when he saw his partner on the ground, something changed in his posture. He wasn't hunting anymore. He was calculating, deciding if I was worth it. That's when we both heard the sirens. His eyes went wide behind the ski mask, and he turned and ran. I heard his footsteps retreating through the stockroom, heard the loading dock door slam open. I stood there in the break room, covered in fire extinguisher foam, holding a tire iron with blood on it, shaking so hard my teeth were chattering. The police found me there 3 minutes later. Danny survived. Severe concussion, fractured skull, but he survived. Sarah had a broken arm and collarbone from being thrown into a display case. 2 other workers they'd found hiding in the garden center were unharmed. The 6th member of our crew, a kid named Tyler who was only 19, wasn't so lucky. They found him in the parking lot near his car. He'd been trying to run. The police caught the first man I'd fought about 2 miles away, bleeding and limping. His name was Derek Hoskins, and he was wanted in connection with 3 other store robberies that had turned violent. The second one, the one I'd hit with the extinguisher, was his brother. He had a skull fracture and was in ICU for 2 weeks before they could arrest him. They told me later that they'd been watching the store, waiting for night shift when there would be fewer people. They knew the camera blind spots. They knew the layout. Someone had given them inside information. A former employee who'd been fired 6 months earlier and wanted revenge. The tire iron I grabbed had Tyler's blood on it. I quit 3 days after I got out of the hospital. Couldn't go back into that building. Couldn't walk down those aisles without seeing Danny on the ground or hearing Sarah scream through the radio. I still have nightmares about that crowbar coming down at my head, about the sound of the door breaking, about Tyler's mom at the funeral asking me why I survived and her son didn't. I work in a warehouse now. Day shift. Lots of people around all the time. I don't do nights anymore, and I never, ever work anywhere that has a back door I can't see from where I'm standing. Because sometimes the scariest thing isn't the stranger following you, it's the door you didn't know was already open. What started as a normal grocery run turned into the most terrifying night of my life. I thought I was being paranoid. I thought I was overreacting. But when I saw the security footage later and what he tried to do in that parking lot, I realized my instincts had saved me from becoming another statistic. This is what happened to me at Walmart on a Tuesday night in October. It was around 8:47 p.m. when I pulled into the Walmart parking lot. I remember checking the time because I had exactly 1 hour before they closed, and I needed to grab groceries for the week. The sky was that deep purple color right before it goes completely black, and there was a light drizzle making everything look slick under the parking lot lights. I grabbed a cart from the corral and headed inside. The store wasn't crowded, maybe 20 or 30 people scattered throughout. Just the usual late-night crowd. A few college kids buying energy drinks, some elderly couples doing their shopping, workers in uniforms grabbing dinner. Nothing unusual, nothing that would make me think twice about being there alone. I started in the produce section like I always do. Picked up some apples, bagged some lettuce, grabbed tomatoes. That's when I first noticed him. He was standing near the organic section, maybe 15 feet away, just staring, not at the vegetables, at me. He was probably in his mid-40s, wearing a dark blue jacket and jeans that looked too clean, too pressed for someone doing casual shopping at night. His cart was empty, completely empty, and he wasn't moving. I felt that little flutter in my stomach, but I pushed it down. People zone out in grocery stores all the time, right? Maybe he was tired. Maybe he was trying to remember what he needed to buy. I turned my cart and headed toward the bakery section. 2 minutes later, I'm looking at bread options and I see him again in my peripheral vision. Same aisle, still no items in his cart. This time he's closer, maybe 10 feet away, pretending to look at bagels. But I could feel his eyes on me. That prickly sensation on the back of your neck when you know someone's watching. I left the bread and moved quickly toward the cereal aisle. My heart was starting to beat faster now. I kept telling myself I was being ridiculous, that this was a public place with cameras everywhere, that I was safe. But something primitive in my brain was screaming at me to pay attention. In the cereal aisle, I pretended to read the nutrition facts on a box of granola while secretly watching the end of the aisle. 30 seconds passed. Then I saw the front of his cart appear, slowly rolling into view. He turned down my aisle. The squeaky wheel on his cart was the only sound besides the distant muzak playing overhead. I grabbed the first cereal box I touched and put it in my cart, then walked at a normal pace toward the canned goods section. Not running. I didn't want him to know I'd noticed him, but my hands were starting to shake. For the next 10 minutes, I tried to lose him. I'd go down an aisle, skip 2 aisles over, double back. But every single time, within a minute or two, I'd see him again. Different angles, different distances, but always there, always watching. His cart still had nothing in it. That's when I really started to panic. I headed toward the busier part of the store, near the pharmacy and checkout lanes, where there were more people and brighter lights. I stood near a display of seasonal candy, pretending to shop while actually looking for an employee. My phone was in my purse, and I was seriously considering calling someone, but what would I even say? There's a man shopping in the same store as me? I had no proof. No concrete reason except this overwhelming feeling of dread. Then he did something that made my blood run cold. He smiled at me, not a friendly "excuse me" smile. Not an awkward, "we keep running into each other" smile. It was slow and deliberate, and it didn't reach his eyes at all. And he mouthed something. I couldn't hear him from that distance, but I could read his lips clearly. "I see you." I abandoned my cart right there and walked as fast as I could toward the front of the store. My legs felt like rubber. I was weaving between other shoppers, my eyes scanning for any employee with a blue vest. I finally saw a young guy, maybe 19 or 20, stocking shelves near the electronics section. "Excuse me," I said, and my voice came out higher than normal. "This is going to sound crazy, but there's a man who's been following me through the store." The employee looked concerned immediately. "What does he look like?" "Blue jacket, jeans, empty cart. I'm right here." The voice came from directly behind me, and I actually jumped. I spun around, and there he was, standing so close I could smell his cologne, something sharp and chemical. The employee stepped forward, positioning himself slightly between us. "Sir, can I help you find something?" the employee asked, his voice firm. The man's face changed completely. Suddenly he looked confused, almost offended. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm with her." He gestured at me. "Honey, I found the bread you wanted." My mouth went dry. "I don't know him." "She's joking," he said smoothly to the employee. "We had a little fight in the car. She's upset with me." He reached out like he was going to touch my arm, and I jerked backward. "I have never seen this man before in my life," I said loudly. A few other shoppers were starting to look now. The employee pulled out his radio. "Yeah, I need management to electronics. Possible situation." The man's mask slipped. For just a second, his face went flat and cold, and I saw something dark flash in his eyes. Then he put his hands up in a peaceful gesture. Okay. My mistake. I thought you were someone else. My apologies." He backed away slowly, maintaining eye contact with me the entire time, and that smile crept back onto his face. Then he turned and walked toward the exit. Not quickly, not running. Just a casual stroll like he had all the time in the world. His empty cart sat abandoned in the middle of the aisle. The manager arrived 60 seconds later. They pulled security footage while I gave my statement, sitting in the back office with a bottle of water I couldn't even drink because my hands were shaking too badly. They walked me out to my car with 2 security guards, one on each side of me. The parking lot felt enormous and empty under those yellow lights. My car was parked in the 3rd row, and every shadow between the vehicles looked like it could be hiding something. The drizzle had turned into actual rain, and it made that static sound against the pavement that swallows up other noises. We were maybe 20 feet from my car when I heard the footsteps behind us. Fast, running. I turned just in time to see him coming out from between 2 trucks, and he had something in his hand. It caught the light, something metal. One of the security guards shouted and stepped in front of me, and that's when everything exploded into chaos. The man swung at the guard with what I later learned was a box cutter, catching him across the forearm. The guard screamed and fell backward into me, and we both went down onto the wet pavement. I felt the impact of hitting the ground jar through my whole body, tasted blood in my mouth from biting my tongue. The second guard tackled the man, and they crashed into the side of a parked car hard enough to set off its alarm. The sound was deafening. The car alarm, the guard yelling into his radio, the first guard groaning and clutching his arm with blood running between his fingers. I was scrambling backward on my hands like a crab, my shoes slipping on the wet asphalt. The man broke free from the second guard and lunged toward me. He got within 3 feet before the guard grabbed him again, wrestling him to the ground. I could hear him saying things, screaming things at me, but the car alarm was so loud, I couldn't make out the words. His face was twisted into something inhuman, something full of rage and something else, something worse than rage. More employees came running from the store. Someone pinned his arms, someone else sat on his legs, and the whole time he was staring at me with these wide, unblinking eyes, still trying to crawl toward me, even with 3 people holding him down. The police arrived 4 minutes later. Paramedics came for the injured guard. He needed 17 stitches. They arrested the man, and when they searched his car, they found zip ties, duct tape, a hammer, and trash bags in the trunk. They found photographs, not of me, but of other women. Different women in different parking lots. The detective told me later that I wasn't his first target, but I was the first one who noticed him early enough, the first one who asked for help while still inside the store. The other women, he'd caught them alone in the parking lot, and they hadn't been as lucky. I spent 3 hours at the police station that night. They showed me the security footage of him waiting by his car, watching me enter the store. They showed me footage from other Walmarts over the past 6 months. Different stores, different parking lots, but always the same pattern, always the same blue jacket. The guard who got cut, Marcus, recovered fully. He still works at that Walmart, and sometimes I see him when I force myself to go back during daylight hours with my husband. We don't talk about that night, but there's this understanding between us. He has a thick scar on his forearm that he'll carry for the rest of his life because he stepped in front of me. The man took a plea deal. 15 years. The prosecutor told me that with the evidence they found in his car and the testimony from the other victims they'd eventually located, he could have gotten much more. But they wanted to spare everyone from a trial. I still have nightmares about the sound of his footsteps on that wet pavement, that moment of turning around and seeing him running at us with that blade catching the light, the feeling of hitting the ground and not being able to get up fast enough. I don't shop alone anymore. I don't shop at night anymore. And I park right under the lights near the entrance, even if I have to wait for a spot. Because when they searched his phone, they found my license plate number in his notes, along with 4 other plate numbers. Working late shifts at Walmart never scared me. Annoyed me? Sure, but scared. Not until the night someone waited in the shadows long after closing, just watching. I didn't notice at first, and by the time I did, I was already part of his plan. I was 24 when it happened. It was the end of October. The air had just started to bite, and we were already setting out Christmas decorations like Halloween didn't matter. I worked at a Walmart on the outskirts of town, right off the highway, where streetlights flicker and barely work, and the lot is too big for how empty it gets at night. That Thursday, I'd come in around 4 in the afternoon. The store was short-staffed as usual. I was covering the self-checkout area and backing up customer service when things got busy. The day itself wasn't anything special. Returns, broken price scanners, someone trying to argue over a $2 price difference. Just the usual noise and repetition. The only real change was that we had a few new faces working. One was a guy from overnight stocking. I didn't catch his name. He kept to himself, wore his hoodie up the entire shift, and didn't really talk to anyone unless he had to. I didn't think much of it. We get people like that all the time. As the store got closer to closing, things started to quiet down. Most of the lights in the far aisles went off automatically. The last customers trickled through. Late-night snack runs, forgotten prescriptions, that kind of thing. At 11:50 p.m., I started my usual closing routine. I wiped down the kiosks, restocked receipt paper, and signed off on the hand scanner. Then I headed toward the break room in the back, past the security office and rows of empty employee lockers. I remember the hallway being quiet, with just the buzz of the fluorescent light overhead. I scanned out at exactly 12:04 a.m. My shoulders ached. I just wanted to get home, eat something terrible, and crash. I pulled my hoodie on and stepped outside. That's when I noticed it. That stillness. It was colder than I expected. No breeze, no motion in the trees beyond the edge of the lot. Just a sharp, empty silence. The kind that makes you feel like something's watching. Walmart's lot is massive. Rows and rows of parking spaces, most of them empty after midnight. I had parked like I always did, halfway toward the back, near a pole that sometimes flickered but gave me just enough light to see my car. About 40 feet away, near the edge of the property, I saw a black SUV. It hadn't been there earlier, parked crooked, across 2 spaces, engine off. All the windows were dark. At first, I didn't think much of it. Probably an employee waiting for a ride or someone resting, but then the lights flashed, once, and shut off again. No sound. No movement. Something in me tightened. I kept walking, head down, keys in hand, trying to act normal. I passed a few other cars. One of them had condensation on the windows, like someone had been breathing inside for a while. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Soft, behind me. I didn't turn around right away. I veered toward a cart corral, pretending to toss something into the trash can there. Over my shoulder I saw him, tall, wearing a dark hoodie, walking slowly, deliberately, not toward the store. Toward me. I started walking faster. My car wasn't far. My hand shook as I pressed the key fob. The headlights blinked once, then off. I slipped in, locked the door, and forced myself to breathe. He wasn't rushing. He didn't need to. He passed 2 rows over, never looking directly at me. But I knew. I knew he saw me. He kept walking until he was out of view. I sat there, frozen, waiting. I started the car. The dashboard lit up, radio off, just the low rumble of the engine. Then the SUV's headlights came on again. This time they stayed on. The vehicle pulled forward slowly, turned toward the lot exit, and waited. I sat there a full minute, then backed out slowly. I drove toward the exit, passed by him, didn't make eye contact. He waited until I turned onto the road, then he followed. He didn't tailgate, he didn't speed, he just kept a steady distance, 2 cars behind. Every turn I made, he made. When I paused too long at a yellow light, he did too. By the 3rd turn, I knew it wasn't random. I cut into a 24-hour gas station, pulled into the frontmost spot near the glass window, and left the engine running. My hands were slick. My breathing felt shallow. I kept pretending to check my phone, but I was staring at the reflection in the glass. The SUV passed by slowly, turned the corner, then nothing. I waited. About 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text from Kayla, one of my coworkers. "Was that your boyfriend asking for you after close?" Guy in a hoodie came in at like 11:55. Kinda sketchy. I replied immediately. What did he look like? Didn't see his face. Just kept looking toward the back hallway. Asked when night shift got off. Left without buying anything. I could barely swallow. I called the police from the gas station parking lot. I gave them the description, the plate number, at least what I could remember. An officer met me there about 15 minutes later. He was calm, but I could tell he believed me. He took my statement, asked me to ride with another officer to Walmart to check footage. We watched it in the tiny surveillance room, cramped with old monitors and empty coffee cups. And there he was, the man in the hoodie. He hadn't come in to shop. He'd loitered just inside the entrance, watched the registers, then walked down the center aisle, slowly, toward the employee hallway. Security footage caught him glancing around, then exiting the side door used by employees. That door doesn't lock from the outside. They scanned more footage and caught his SUV entering the lot at 10:43 p.m. He didn't park in front. He drove around the back, circled once, then backed into a spot with no cameras. He sat there for over an hour, engine off, just watching. By morning, they found the SUV dumped behind an abandoned strip mall. Plates were stolen. Inside, they found zip ties, gloves, and an empty soda bottle. They never found him. That night changed everything. I stopped parking far away. I never walked out alone again. I asked for earlier shifts. I carried pepper spray and a keychain alarm, and I took different routes home. Months later, I still jumped when someone knocked at my car window, even if it was just a coworker. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't seen him, if I'd lingered just a few minutes longer in the break room. Sometimes I wonder how many nights he sat there, watching different women leave, waiting for one to walk to her car without looking over her shoulder. And sometimes, when I drive through certain lots, I still see headlights flick on in the distance. If you have made this far, please don't forget to subscribe the channel. Your support matters a lot.